Okay, coming up on LiveWire, we've got a great show for you today. You're going to love it. We are some people from California Stage. We're going to talk about a reading of a rare Shakespeare. And if you're a Shakespearean person, you probably never heard of this show. It's wonderful. So stay tuned for LiveWire. We're going to also talk about Too Many Husbands, which is to play live radio dramas that they also do. So you can go to those things, not together. Stay tuned for LiveWire right after this. With me in the studio is Stephen Crane, who is a director and a producer, and the play is called A Reading of Rare Shakespeare, The True History of Sir John Oldcastle.
Yes. Sir John Oldcastle is a very interesting character, and the play is a very interesting one because it was published in the third folio. And
What's a third folio?
Oh, I'm sorry. The third folio was the third publication of Shakespeare's plays.
I see.
And it took place around 1660.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 7 plays that appear in the third folio that weren't in the first folio. And this is one of them.
Okay. Oh, well, that is really interesting. I find it fascinating. The third folio. And the true history of Sir John Oldcastle. I think I know my Shakespeare. I never heard of this.
Yeah, it vanished to a degree between 1660 and the present. I believe it was squashed.
Yes.
Because it had political overtones. And in fact, it's the first part of 2 plays, and the second play is lost entirely as far as we know. And I think that's largely because it ruffled feathers that preferred not to be ruffled and had the power to keep their feathers from being ruffled.
Yeah. What was the situation like? It would seem to me that there would be like chains possible if you did it wrong, or you did something the Queen didn't like.
Yeah, the situation was an awkward one because there were factions within every court, but within Elizabeth's court, certainly one of the most significant powers in the land during Elizabeth's reign, as before and after, was the church. Mm-hmm. And there are aspects of the story of Sir John that deal with the church in a not terribly flattering light. The play takes place in around 1414, and things were much different then. That was, of course, before the Reformation. And some of the story deals with things that led to the Reformation, at least in England. And even though that was 200 years in the past, when Shakespeare, as far as we know, wrote the play, the political situation was still sensitive enough that to be seen criticizing the church, and especially certain aspects of the church, was not really going to be tolerated.
So tell me a little bit about the play itself. How does it start, and what is it? Who's in it?
Well, it starts with a bang, which is kind of fun. It starts with a fight, and it's a pretty serious fight. You could almost call it a riot.
Swords?
Swords and daggers and clubs and who knows what, and at least one person eventually dies as a result of the fight. But the time period is early in the reign of King Henry V. And we know Shakespeare admired King Henry V tremendously because, of course, it's one of his greatest plays. Mm-hmm. And Henry is an undeniable hero in the play Henry V. In this play, he's younger. And although some of the events actually can be seen in both plays, the treason of Grey, Scroop, and I can't remember the third traitor's name, but takes place in both plays. But Sir John takes place in England prior to Henry going overseas to France to eventually end up in the Battle of Agincourt. And the political situation was difficult, in part because Henry was the son of John, not John of Gaunt, but he was the grandson of John of Gaunt, and the son of Henry IV, who had just taken the throne from his cousin Richard II.
Yeah.
And so you had this changing of the Plantagenet Guard, and this is really the origins of the War of the Roses. And so that was part of the controversy going on during Henry's reign. But the other aspect was Sir John is actually what is called a Lollard.
A Lollard?
Lollard. And Lollard comes from a Dutch word which means mumbling. And what they actually were people who followed the teachings of an English priest named John Wycliffe. And John Wycliffe had this radical idea that everybody should be able to read the Bible. And so he and his followers translated the Bible from the Latin that it was most commonly published in those days into English, in the hope that all the common people would be able to read it and interpret it on their own. Prior to this, the Bible in Europe had been published in Latin, which pretty much meant that only scholars and priests could read it.
Mm-hmm.
And the church liked it that way, because that meant that they had complete control of the message. Along came John Wycliffe and said, no, everybody should be able to read this. It's not magic. It's here for us all to read. And so they began making copies of the Bible by hand. This was before the printing press. And in the English of the day, probably what we would call Middle English,
Mm-hmm.
and encouraging people to learn to read and to read the Bible for themselves and interpret it for themselves.
And how does that fit into the play?
Well, Sir John Oldcastle is a Lollard. He believes very strongly in the teachings of John Wycliffe. And that puts him at odds with the church. Henry very much needed the support of the church in order to carry out his war with France. He needed their money, he needed the support of their properties and their men even. And without those, Henry would have been very foolish to have invaded France. With them, he not only had the money and the men, but he had the approval of the church. And that was pretty significant. So Sir John was a kind of a mentor to Henry. And Henry and John were very close, but the church saw this as a problem. They didn't want their young king tending towards Lollardy. And tending towards Lollardy would mean away from the church.
Yeah.
And possibly taking power away.
So
from
that's
the
what
church.
it's about. It's about that that conflict. I see.
That's
so
the main
it's a true
conflict.
history of Sir John Oldcastle.
Yes.
It's like I get it. Okay. So when can I see this?
We're
This is a reading by professional actors. Right?
It's a reading by professional actors. It'll be taking place the weekend of June 3rd and 4th. The 3rd, we have a performance at 8 o'clock in the evening. The 4th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Tickets are available from calstage.org if you need more information. And we're very excited about this because this is not a commonly heard or seen play.
Well, I'm sure. I've talked to people who know their Shakespeare, and I said, we're going to do a Shakespeare piece called The True History of Sir John Oldcastle. And they gave me weird looks.
It is kind of sad because Sir John was a pretty heroic fellow in his own right, and yet he has vanished from the majority of the history books.
I see.
And he ended up becoming a martyr if you will. He was eventually burned at the stake. And
That's no fun.
well, especially for a member of the nobility.
Yes.
It was very rare. About 100 Lollards were burned at the stake during Henry's reign, and Sir John being one of them.
So it's an amazing story also about how the nobility could get into trouble with the king.
Well, with the church and then the king. The church does not play an heroic role in this play. We see members of the clergy behaving in ways that are fairly reprehensible. And I think that portrayal was probably the single most offensive part to the clergy in the time of Elizabeth when the play was written.
Okay, so the true history of Sir John Oldcastle will be at the Wilkerson Theater
Yes.
on June 3rd and June 4th. That's coming right up,
Yes, it's just a little over a week away.
a week away. And so folks can get on to their ticketing by going to calstage.org.
Correct. CalStage.
CalStage.org. Oh, there it is on the screen. That's nice.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
very good.
All right, good. And the actors that you have, I don't know if you brought a list of them, but I saw the list, and it looked like some of the best actors in town.
I think we have some very talented actors. It is a reading of the play as opposed to a full-on performance, but I think the audience will find it both interesting and entertaining, and can genuinely look forward to a rare experience.
So if the audience reaction is positive and they think that it's a play that California Stage could do, what do you think?
I think that would be very exciting. And again, I think Sir John is a character that deserves to be brought back. He, I suppose you could say, never entirely vanished, in that in some way he was the inspiration for one of Shakespeare's most beloved characters, and that is Sir John Falstaff. But of course, Falstaff was a bit of a lampoon, and not the honorable man and eventual martyr that Sir John Oldcastle was.
Yeah.
So I think seeing this play brings justice to a character who was in some ways, you could probably say, maligned.
I see. Wow. Well, Stephen Crane, I want to thank you very much for talking about this. It's amazing. So we just have to say, if you want to see this play or hear it, and it's the true history of Sir John Oldcastle at the Wilkerson Theater coming up, you can do it by just going to calstage.org. See there at the bottom of the screen?
That's magic.
That is magic. Thanks. Come back anytime with your what the things that you were doing, and we'll talk some more.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to take a short pause for the cause, and we'll be back, and we're going to be talking about something really interesting, too. It's called radio drama. Radio drama. Whoa.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kitchen now.
In 4 days. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have
have a good day at school? She gave them some broth. Without any bread. There you go. And kiss them all soundly.
Night-night.
Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
We're back with LiveWire. Thank you so much for coming and watching this show. If you are interested in this next thing, it's at the same theater. It's called radio drama. And Carol, you have done this radio drama. You adapt radio dramas for live staged readings, right?
Yeah. They're really good old scripts, but back when they were written and presented, they sometimes had activities that wouldn't be acceptable now, like throwing your girlfriend over your lap and spanking her because she didn't make the eggs right or something. But at any rate, so I go through it. I read it through. I probably read it through about maybe 10 times before I'm done. And then I fool around with it a little longer for other reasons. But make sure that it's something that people going to see the show would enjoy, because they probably listened to those radio shows when they were kids.
Yeah, was it like the 30s, 40s, and 50s?
Yeah.
Early 50s to late 50s, and there were some, as I remember driving down the Central Valley one time, that there's a large radio station that's got a big signal that does those old radio dramas and plays them.
I love them, yeah. I did it for a while when I was living in San Francisco in the 70s. I would run home from work and turn the radio on, and but you just, it wasn't dependable, you know.
Yeah. So the two that you have, it looks like you have adapted two. So one's called Too Many Husbands.
Yep.
And the other one's called Drive-In.
Right. And what's interesting about both of them, among many other things, is that in both cases these were shows that were, for instance, the one that's Too Many Husbands, the one that has Frank Sinatra as Rocky Fortune, Rocco Fortunato.
Rocco Fortune. Yeah.
No,
Did we
said
talk like
Rocco
this?
Fortunato. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. New York boy.
New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was getting in people's way where he was working, at the studio he was working at, and they were going to boot him out if he didn't clean up his act. And so they said, hey, you know what? He's got some good stuff coming up. Let's keep him here as long as we can. So they created this character, Rocky Fortune, and he's like a private eye, not really successful, because the thing opens up in the Employment Development Department kind of place, where he's there trying to get a little help with his, he can't buy groceries. But
you don't want to
anyway,
give away too much, but we can go and listen to the actors read this play when?
Oh, I've got the first read through is May 31st, Wednesday, at 7 p.m. And it'll be a rehearsal read through, etc. And then people will go home with their scripts and figure out how they want that character.
Oh.
And then we have a couple of meetings after that, and then we perform on June 10th.
For the public then, right?
Yes.
I see it says June 10th at 8 p.m. and Sunday, June 11th at 2 p.m. Is that right?
No, 9th and 10th is what I've got.
Oh, 9th and 10th.
Yeah,
Right.
9th and 10th.  10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10th. 10 The other one is kind of interesting. Judy Garland was in it.
Ah.
Yeah, she plays the lead. She's a young woman working at a drive-in in Hollywood, and she's late getting out of there. She's got to go home, and the last bus to Glendale is getting ready to leave in about 10 minutes. And this guy pulls in, and he's honking the horn, and there are still people in the parking lot.
It's one of those drive-ins where they, yeah, sure.
Where they bring your tray out on and put it on your window. And she's a Hollywood hopeful. She's hoping that someday she's going to be discovered. It's got some very cool information. Well, you know, I mean, memories.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for some people. But bottom line, I think, is that it's 25 years later that we're being told her story, and she is wondering why she's still thinking about this guy.
Wow.
He was a bad guy.
Bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I remember all the bad guys and gals in my life. But so it's called, what's this one's called?
It's called Drive-In.
Drive-In.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so the other one is called Too Many Husbands?
Too Many Husbands. That
I
this
think that tells the story.
Rocky Fortune runs into a gorgeous
Uh-huh.
blonde with a thick Southern belle accent, and she's spotted him for something that she would like to be able to use him for, and that is to help her get rid of her problem husbands.
Ooh.
Well,
She
first
has
it's
two
just one
husbands?
of them. Well, you know, she does, because
Maybe
the
more.
first one was sent to prison for life.
I see.
And then all of a sudden, they booted him out. They sent him out into the public again. And the problem, of course, is that the woman he was married to didn't divorce him. That's this girl. She didn't divorce him, but she figured he'd just die there and everything would be fine. And she didn't get, she married somebody else also. She had two
I see
husbands
trouble.
without realizing
I see trouble
it.
in
Yeah.
her future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she spots this guy. He looks needy. He looked like somebody she could manipulate. And she offers him the opportunity to make $5,000 to kill her husband, the one that just got out of prison.
Okay. We won't tell people how it turns out.
Oh, no, not
course
going
not.
to tell you.
Yeah. But they can come and find out, right?
Sure, they can. Absolutely.
So
At
and
night.
that's by coming to kyleStage.org, going there and getting a pair of tickets.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So what's fascinating about it is I have a list of your actors, so they all look like they're really top of the line. There are 2 or 3 of them I've seen in many plays. So
Me
who's your
too.
star?
Oh, Lauren Taylor is one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you who he's playing, because if you're going to come and see it, you really need to be able to be in it.
Uh-huh.
You know, you're part of the story. But Rocky Fortune was a possibility, but I decided that Rocky Fortune was kind of a loser of a guy, and our man is not.
I see. Okay.
Lauren
He's a-
isn't going to go.
He's
come
a
across.
winner.
Yeah.
That's good. But you do have someone to play the loser.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
There are-
good. So
Yeah.
well, we won't reveal that either.
No, don't tell.
I playing a loser?
Yeah, I'm leaving.
Well, it is fascinating. So radio drama, how many radio dramas do you think you've adapted?
Wow. Oh, you know, there are still quite a lot of them that haven't been done yet.
Yeah.
You know, some of them, I would say that we have done probably about 30 or more. And they're really, I think they get better. I think that they are more like, ooh, why didn't I know that before? I would have done that, you know. But it's great fun, because when you listen to some of the things that they say, you know that they're no-nos now.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to, you know, when we did our show last time, a gentleman pulled me over after we were done with those two shows, and he said, "How do you start adapting when you want to adapt? How do you start?" And it was like, I bet you he wants to do this.
Yeah,
you know, sounds good to me.
That sounds great.
yeah.
Really wonderful. I think it's fascinating. So we have to announce it. Again, we have to let people know you want to see the radio's dramas. There are Too Many Husbands and Drive-In.
Yeah.
Drive-In, which is an interesting thing because it was nuanced then. Drive-In, yeah. Automobile land in Hollywood.
Early, too.
All right. And it's on Saturday. When is it? Saturday and Sunday?
It's on the 9th and the 10th. And the 10th is a matinee.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. You can learn more by going to calstage.org.
Yes, you sure can.
Carol, thanks for coming to talk to me about this. I really appreciate it.
It's been fun.
Fascinating. Okay.
It's been
All right,
fun.
everyone. Look, I also have a couple of things to read to you. If you're interested in film and lighting for the studio, if you want to work in that kind of way, there's an instructor called Matthew Timoshitz, and he is a person who is going to be giving classes. If you're a member of the Access Sacramento crew, you can look and get a special discount on that. And then the next thing is Camera Ready Makeup Basics for television and film, mostly film. Film uses a lot of light. And so you can do magic with makeup. And Bunny Stewart is going to also have a class in that coming up. And you can learn more about it by calling Access Sacramento, which is, everybody should know this, 916-456-8600. All right, and there it is, Camera Ready Makeup Basics with makeup artist Bunny Stewart. That's on June 3rd. That's coming right up right away, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's about all the time we have here for LiveWire. And how much time do I have? Can I ask Carol one more question? Oh, a little bit. Okay. You like doing this work with the radio dramas?
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. We used to just hang out, and my brothers and I would finish dinner and race around, get cleaned up, get ready for bed, and sit down right in front of the radio, which was a pretty good sized piece of furniture.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for today. We'll see you next week on LiveWire, Wednesday, live at 5.